Welcome back to Imagine If. For those of you that are new to the channel, I'm your host as always, The Butler. This channel is for people who have an attraction towards the paranormal world, and for those who are also attracted to the dark side of the world of the unexplained and unsolved. If you are getting any type of enjoyment out of my videos, please like and subscribe. I post between 3 and 4 awesome videos per week. Also, remember to hit the notification bells to get notified the moment I drop a video. Without any further ado, let's jump right into the action. Today we're going to be diving into the real-life haunted or possessed dolls. When I first started doing the research for these dolls, I was pretty surprised on the amount of dolls that have been claimed to be confirmed real cases. People have claimed for centuries that dolls have been targeted for paranormal activity. Many people in the Hollywood business have made hundreds of millions of dollars from these real life cases that they pretty much just put into movie form. That's right, some of these movies mentioned were based on true stories. I'm very excited to jump into the show, so let's jump right into it. Let's talk about it. First on the list is the Annabelle doll. But if we're talking movie-wise, let's talk about Annabelle creation for argument's sake. It's the freshest. I would agree with most people that are watching my channel right now that Annabelle is one of the scariest movies ever created. Now, this is the 4th installment of the Conjuring series. It focuses on a possessed pelican doll that has kept moviegoers like me and you on our heels for years. While the movie is pretty scary, the true story behind it is even creepier. The original doll, which is now locked up in Ed and Lorraine Warren's occult museum in Monroe, Connecticut, is said to have unleashed a reign of terror on a group of flatmates in a chain of events that ended with a man dying. It's pretty interesting. The rag doll with the huge black eyes looks very different from the film's looks like a China doll, but it absolutely does not matter. Her story is equally as creepy and scary. Annabelle's story began in the 1970s when a mom bought the doll from a hobby shop for her daughter Donna for a birthday gift. Donna then took the doll back to the flat where she shared it with her friend Angie and soon began to notice small hand movements with the doll. According to Lorraine Warren, who spoke with The Sun, the doll then began moving around the flat, appearing outside Angie's room, and after that actually being placed outside of Donna's bed and actually outside as well. Shortly after, things took a turn for the sinister worse. It turns out that a close friend of the girls, named Lou, warned them that the doll may be possessed, but they didn't pay any attention. Shortly after that, random notes began to appear all over the house, reading, "Help us," "Help Lou," and it was written in a child's handwriting. The girl soon had to call a medium, and the medium claimed that the apartment was built on a site where a 7-year-old girl's remains named Annabelle Higgins were found years before. The legend states, when the doll was brought to the apartment, Annabelle's spirit was apparently in the area, and she had been fond of the doll, adopting and possessing it. After hearing the backstories, the girls decided to keep the doll, feeling sorry for the real Annabelle. But before long, Lou was attacked. A series of incidents followed, including one where Lou was attacked by a presence that left 7 scratch marks on his body, 3 vertically, 4 horizontally, all searing hot. But it gets even creepier than that. These scratch wounds, they disappeared without a trace within 2 days. Donna, shortly after that, went to a priest, Father Hagen, who referred them to the occult experts Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed and Lorraine told the girls that the doll is being manipulated by an inhuman demonic spirit. The apartment was shortly after cleansed by Ed, and the couple took the dog away and they housed it in their museum. The doll since then has been in their possession, and it has caused a few more incidences. One with a priest getting into a car crash, head-on collision, and dying. Unfortunately, Ed Warren died in 2006, and Lorraine says she can still not look at the doll because it's the worst thing inside of their occult museum. Mandy the doll. Haunted dolls are a huge growing trend within the ghostly part of the world, and at the moment people just can't get enough of it. Thanks to movies like The Conjuring, the whole world is aware of the Annabelle doll. And then there's Robert the doll. But these mainstream dolls have been getting the attention for a very long time, and perhaps many of them are just as frightening. We'll get to the Robert doll in a second, but let's focus on the Mandy doll. Mandy is an old doll that was made in Germany, roughly between 1919 and 1920. She was donated to the Creuzel Museum in Canada in 1991 after a string of events that drove her owners to the point of insanity. The owners claimed that they will hear a sound of a little girl crying coming from the basements most nights out of the week. When she went to look, there would be no child, just an open window and Mandy staring right at her. It did not take a long time for Mandy to be donated to the museum, where she did stop the crying, but after a while, strange things began to happen, mostly to the staff. Lunches began to disappear from refrigerators and be found somewhere else inside the museum. Artifacts from the museum which would vanish from their display cabinets and ended up in a different one, beneath the previously locked glass. I actually think that one would actually kind of freak me out. Perhaps the most disturbing of them all was the footsteps. Staff would only hear these ghostly type of footsteps when they were alone. They would begin to slow and distant, but they knew it would speed up, and it would sound like these footsteps were running towards you. One staff member claimed that he heard the footsteps coming towards him as he was locking up one night, and he was freaked out, so he ran fast. He ran as fast as he could, but he felt as if she just continued to gain on him. I think we will all agree that that's pretty screwed up. But the real haunting began when they tried to place Mandy next to other dolls in the museum. The moving of the objects and the footsteps were just the beginning. Soon Mandy grew restless. She was not given a permanent place for a while because it seemed that she was not happy with the other former placements. At first, she was placed on the front window, facing all the visitors that came into the museum. She was rapidly removed after people began to complain of headaches and dizziness after looking at her, followed by disturbing nightmares of Mandy watching them as they slept. Over 15 people have claimed to have this type of dreams or nightmares, if you will, about Mandy, all on separate occasions. So naturally, after hearing these from the guests, they moved her. They then placed her in a different section next to antique dolls, but that was a mistake as well. The first night that they put Mandy next to the antique dolls, they showed up to work the next day and all of the antique dolls were ripped apart, destroyed, and some even burnt. But on top of that, she refused to be alone. Staff members found papers scattered all across the room. It's kind of like she was locked in a room and throwing a tantrum. She also had a certain type of vendetta towards the museum's electronics, causing them to malfunction randomly. Many staff members began to complain of a large, overwhelming feeling of nausea. Many guests and workers reported that her eyes followed them as they moved. The energy that Mandy brought to the museum was overwhelming. Her little lamb toy began to move by itself. Some even saw it gliding across the room to be sat in a different spot. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I seen that, I'm definitely quitting. Let me know down in the comments below. Would you guys be brave enough to work at this museum with all this craziness going on? Not a lot is known about this doll's history. There's a legend that the spirit that possesses her is that of a small girl who became trapped in the basement with her doll and died. So her spirit stayed with Mandy. Many investigators claim that it's just the spirit of a little girl, lonely and sad, but there are many similarities between her and other demonic possessed dolls, so it's hard to tell. Either way that we look at this, I think we can all agree it's pretty creepy. I think this next doll may be the most popular, based off the movie series Childsplay. Robert was an inspiration for the terrifying Chucky doll. Robert is a real life-size doll, which is rather unusual in itself. It was reportedly made from a famous stiff toy company in Germany. It was given to the Florida artist Robert Eugene, better known as Gene Otto, as a birthday present when he was a child in 1904. His grandfather had bought it while on a trip to Germany. The doll wears a tailored suit that was probably a childhood outfit of the real Gene. Another story has it the doll was a gift from a voodoo practitioner made as revenge for some unknown wrongdoing by the family. The stories of the doll odd's behavior began early, with reports of the doll changing expressions and moving around the house on its own. One theory says that Gene himself unleashed the doll's powers by blaming his childhood misdeeds on the life-size doll, who wore his clothes and had his name. Those who lived in the house reported hearing Gene talking to Robert. Perhaps not that unusual, but Robert would talk back, which is extremely unusual. As the years went on, Robert's deeds turned darker. The doll is blamed for many misfortunes, including a financial collapse, broken bones, and fatal car accidents. Robert remained in the Otto family home in Key West, Florida throughout Gene's entire life, and even after his death. The house passed to new owners who kept the living doll for 20 years. Robert now resides in a museum in Key West, where brave tourists can come visit. Next up, Harold the doll. Harold is one of the creepiest dolls we've ever come across. This story comes from Harold's latest owner. Check it out. Harold was originally put up for auction in 2003. He supposedly was the first haunted doll ever sold by eBay. The listing Greg wrote made him the subject of websites and news articles all around the world. I did not see the original auction until Kathy, who wrote the auction, put it up for sale about a year later. Kathy told me that the reason she bid on the doll was not because she believed all the stories, but because she wanted to learn doll restoration, and her teacher told her that this doll was perfect to learn on. A year later, after having a number of personal experiences, including the death of 2 people that she knew that came in contact with Harold, she decided to put the doll back up for sale. When I saw Kathy's auction on eBay, I looked at Greg's original listing and literally laughed out loud. I didn't believe a word of it or the video that he posted. So how exactly did I end up owning this doll? Kathy had a reserve on her auction, and I was curious as to what it was. I kept putting in bids until the reserve was met. I received an email from Kathy which stated, I don't believe Harold is haunted. I do believe he's cursed. She went on to say why she thought so and why I wanted the doll so bad. I told her I did not want the doll. The next morning, I was outbidded by someone calling himself Strange Malik. He emailed me and told me that I was pretty much wasting my time. Don't bother bidding anymore because he would just outbid me. You might, I thought to myself, but it'll cost you. So my plan was to bid him up to the highest level and then dump the auction on him. But of course, it did not happen that way. Unfortunately, I ended up winning the auction. Kathy was genuinely worried about me and offered to let me out of the deal, but I declined. After all, I told her, a deal's a deal. Shortly after I received Harold, I asked a friend of mine to do a reading on him. I recorded the reading. It did not last long, maybe about a minute or two. I can't do this. This doll just threatened to kill me. I was kind of disappointed in my friend and a bit skeptical, but I must have played this recording over and over again 1,000 times, and I heard clearly in a male's voice say, "I'm going to kill you, bitch." I was stunned. I had more readings done, and I seen people physically hurt in front of my eyes while in Harold's presence. I put Harold in storage in 2005, only taking him out occasionally after that. This past June of 2013, I took him out of storage to continue my investigation on him. So far, 4 psychics have done reading on him, and none of them wanted to have anything to do with him afterwards. The Joliet Haunted Doll. Joliet, the haunted and cursed doll, sometimes known simply as Joliet, is a doll that is supposedly possessed. It's said to be highly dangerous. According to the legend, this doll was passed from generation to expecting mothers. Each mother was cursed of having 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl, respectively. Unfortunately, the son is not expected to live long. Each boy lives about 3 days old before some type of unknown circumstances will occur, resulting in some type of illness. It is said that this doll traps the souls of the little boy within its own body. Legend has it that this began when a woman received the doll as a pregnancy gift from her friend. This friend and the woman had a bitter relationship for some reason, and it's believed that she placed a curse on the doll out of jealousy. 3 days after her son was born, he died. Unfortunately, from an unknown blunt strike to the head. Weeks later, after the death of her son, she heard crying that seemed to be imitating her son's cry coming from the doll. Upon closer inspections, she concluded that her son's soul was imprisoned in the doll. Since then, those who have inherited the doll treat Joliet as if the doll was their own son, never attempting to dispose of it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.